Hi there, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. This time I'm using the Drops of Jupiter kit and add-on from the Scraptastic Kit Club, which is of course the kit for the month of March 2016. And this layout is going to be a little bit different, and so is the one after it. So I'm going to come on at the beginning here and talk a little bit about what I plan to do. So I'll just put you through to that right now. Hi guys, I'm going to be scrapbooking a layout tonight, and I'm going to do a process video. I'm going to be doing the companion layout to this one. So this is one of the ones that I did while I was in Moncton at Crop and Create, and I used the Drops of Jupiter kit and a cut file from Just Nick Studio. And Nicole makes such beautiful cut files, and Christine really enabled me by cutting them for me and giving this to me. So I had a lot of fun working with this cut file. And so what I did when I came home is, so the idea behind this one is that this would be what I consider a fan layout, which is just a layout about the band. I scrapbooked this before I went to the concert, and the idea was that I would make this fan page that would be an opportunity for me to scrapbook the band and use pictures that are nicer than the pictures that I would be able to take at a concert, where we actually had not the greatest seats in the world. They were way up high. We were at the very top of the lower bowl, so we were about as far back as you could get without being in the upper bowl. So we didn't have the greatest seats, and I knew that we didn't, and I knew that I wouldn't be getting great shots. So I printed up these shots from the internet and made a little collage and scrapbooked them because I really love his tattoos and I love the band, and I just wanted to be able to see them because I don't think I've scrapbooked Headley before. I've scrapbooked some other bands, but not Headley. So yeah, I'm going to make the companion page for this because now I've gone to the concert and I've got some photos of the concert, but the photo that I'm the most excited about, you'll see, I'll show it when I go to scrapbook, and it's actually one that my husband took when Jake, kind of during the encore, he showed up in the audience with his guitar and he sang a song called Trip. So I've cut another one of Nicole's cut files. This is one of the free ones that you can get from Scrapbooking Cards Today, the magazine. If you go to the website, I will leave a link for this cut file. And what I really like about it, it's called Umbrellas, and I think it's supposed to look like a bunch of umbrellas, but I like that it kind of looks like starbursts. And so I'm just going to show you. It's got all of these circles on it. So I will switch camera angles and you can see me kind of try to fiddle with this. And I cut it in white because this cut file was in white. These two will go face to face. I'm not entirely sure if that might be too much white. So just in case, I have the cut file still up on my Silhouette. I have some black and some blue cardstock just hanging in the wings here that I can use if this piece of white cardstock doesn't seem like it's going to work. Okay, so that might have been a longer than required explanation, but here I am just taking the die cut off of my cutting mat, and I chose double cut on my Silhouette for this because my experience has been that with a really intricate cut like this, it just makes sure that all of the cuts are really clean and crisp, and I don't end up spending a whole lot of time fussing around with it. So I am keeping the negative space parts of this because I thought I could use it either for another project or maybe for a companion page or something. I actually don't think that I had decided on doing a companion page at this point, so I think I kept them for potentially another page. So I'm just looking through the pattern paper here, and you'll see this is the Drops of Jupiter kit, and you'll see that I have two piles of paper, and one is really cut into quite a lot right there. Those are the leftovers from that Headley not concert, but the Headley fan page that I had already done. Those are all the leftovers. So I'm trying to choose some of the patterns that are also in that because my idea is that this layout will face that layout. So I started with the orange piece, and I'm just really roughly cutting these so they're not exactly the right shape for piecing together quite yet, but I just want to get a sense of how these patterns are going to look together. Now that Amy Tan paper, it's from the Better Together, and so is this one. No, this one is from Starshine. So sorry, I better tell you these papers. So this one with the polka dots is from Starshine, and the one with constellations is also from Starshine. The orange striped one is from Scraptastic. It's an exclusive one. And because it is different and less blue, it provides a bit of relief from the other patterns. So I'm just going to start by spreading the orange around the page. So I have a big chunk of it up in the corner there, a small chunk of it down in the bottom corner, and now I'm going to take some of the constellation paper and put it over here. So I'm just spreading it around so that no two versions of the same paper are right beside one another. And I want to spread the orange around the paper, around the page quite a lot. So my thought was that I could put another little bit of the navy. I don't want too much of that really dark blue with the polka dots from the Starshine collection. I don't want too much of that on the page because it is so dark. And I'm very aware of the fact that the facing page has a lot of light on it with the white cutouts and whatnot. And I don't want it to be too much of a contrast. So this is the other side of the Amy Tangerine Starshine. No, Better Together paper. Sorry for the confusion. This narration is a little disorganized, so my apologies for that. And of course, I got my top and bottom mixed up and forgot how I had designed this, but then I remembered, so that's good. So I spread the orange around the page in that triangle, tiny little bit of it up in the top. And now I thought maybe I would put in the center of all of these some type of little embellishment. I thought about maybe stamping and then punching out a circle. And as you can see, I only have 2 ideas and I have 4 centers. So in the meantime, my photo was ready and look at how beautiful it is. Oh, I love that photo. It is basically during the encore. We were all kind of clapping and waiting for him to come back out and play some more music. And he shows up right in the audience, very, very close to us, actually. Although it was so close that we actually couldn't see him all that well. So we had to leave our seats and go down a little bit. And Scott, he's taller than I am, and he captured this really great shot of Jake in the audience with his guitar. You can't really see him. I mean, if you look closely and you know what you're looking for, we can see him, but you probably can't if you weren't at the concert. So I'm just cutting out some dark papers because the photo already has the white border on it, but I wanted even more contrast. So I put some dark papers behind it, and one of them, I wanted to use the polka dots, but it wasn't quite big enough. So I just cut some navy blue cardstock as well to act as that mat. Now I'm just pulling out some embellishments from the kit. A lot of these are from the Starshine collection, but also these dots that you see me putting down are from the exclusive die cuts that came in the kit. So I'm messing around. I ended up finding another one of those wood veneer circles, and so that will help me in terms of filling in all of those circles. And then I thought the photo can actually cover one of the circles, so then I don't have to contend with a 4th circle. I'm flirting with the idea of using the title Limitless, but I'm not going to. Meanwhile, what you didn't see because it was off screen was I recut this in black because I was feeling like it's just a little bit too light, too much white going on. I wasn't entirely happy with it. So I thought it doesn't hurt to just cut it out again in black, and then I can compare and contrast how I think it's going to look and choose the one that I think is going to work best. So first I took off all the embellishments, and then I just left all the patterns in the right spot, and I went back and forth. And so if I use the black mat, the black die cut, I'm going to need another white mat just to set the photo apart from the background a little bit more. So I cut some of that Star Amy Tangerine paper, which is perfect because I was looking for a way to use that because it turns up on the other page that will be facing it. And then for kicks, I thought I'd try this look, which is layering the two die cuts together, a little bit offset, and I absolutely love it. It's perfect. I don't think I could, that is such a great accident. I was not expecting that to work. What happened was I actually picked up the two die cuts and in one hand and noticed that they look kind of cool layered together. So then I tried it and it worked well and I really like it. The white edges around the edges of the die cut shapes, they provide a really nice contrast, like between the white and the black, so that on the dark pattern papers, the black background doesn't get lost because there's a little edge of white around it. So that's just perfect. I love, love, love how that turned out. It's something I would not have thought of, but I just accidentally happened upon it. And sometimes those are the best ideas I have. So that piece of white cardstock still had its branding strip on it, so I took it off. It's from Basil, and it was something that I bought at the Crop, and my kitty cat is very intent on being a part of this. She's very proud of herself. This was filmed last night, and she had caught a mouse. There were two mice. I almost said two mouses. There were two mouses in my house. There were two mice in the house, and the cat caught one of them, and well, she and I kind of worked together to catch it, I guess. Anyhow, she was very proud of herself and very rambunctious, and I think it awakened the inner huntress in her because she was very wound up for the whole rest of the day. So you see what I did there? I cut the shapes a little bit. This is a little tricky actually because the die cut is so intricate. So I'm just doing my best to cut it, and it gets easier as you go along. The first couple of pieces have to be cut exactly perfectly because there aren't papers on any of the other circles yet. But once there's paper on some of the circles, you can overlap your papers a little bit more because it won't show through. So I'm just kind of trying to do my best to cut it so that I don't want to cut it too much so that I have spaces, like gaps in the hole that I'm trying to cover, but I don't want it to extend over into the other hole that I'm not trying to cover. So I'm using mostly my Zig 2-way glue pen because it allows me to put the glue exactly where I want it to go. It doesn't hold all that great though. So whenever possible, I'm using my Tombow glue runner, like just the regular tape runner by Tombow, because that will hold it a little bit better. So whenever possible, I'm using that. So again, I'm just trimming this piece. And again, this piece with the chevrons on it is the Amy Tangerine Better Together paper. On the back side, it has that gorgeous star pattern, which I was so wishing that I could use on this page, but it's just not going to work with with this page. It is in the page facing it, the Headley fan page. So, and it is also in the layers behind the photo. So that will work out okay. So you see what I mean here. Once there's paper on some of the circles, then you can just overlap it with the circle that you're trying to cover or to fill in, I guess. So that's looking great. And I really wanted this paper to land so that that constellation was in the center of the circle. Even though I'm going to be covering the center with a flare badge, I don't know, it seemed important to me to have that constellation in place, even though I was going to cover it. I don't think I was thinking about that when I was doing it. So here we go, more, and then, so I've been just kind of applying the glue and sticking it down in one place and then peeling it up and sticking it down in another place. This one can go on quite easily because almost all the circles around it are covered already. And I'm not gluing all the way to the very ends of the little pieces that point into the center of the circle because I want them to have a bit of lift to them. So I'm just gluing down a little ways when I think it would be helpful for keeping the paper in place. So there we go. And then I'm just going to trim around the outside of this piece. And now my background is all completely made and I'm so pleased with it. I took this piece of paper from my stash. It's probably the most beautiful color of purple I have ever seen. It's absolutely stunningly gorgeous. I love that purple. But I'm very unlikely to scrapbook with purple cardstock. I'm not sure why it's in my stash, but I used it to just back all of those random cut up pieces of paper just to hold them all in place. So I did use a fair amount of glue, much more than I usually use, just so that it can do a pretty good job of keeping all of those papers in place. That way I don't have to be so careful with this layout as I'm kind of handling it and moving it around and stuff. So now I'm just matting this photo, and you see that I cut the blue cardstock into a triangle because it just wasn't layering quite properly. It's still not going to layer properly, but I'm going to give up on trying. Then I put some pop dots, and these are black pop dots. I forgot why I never use them. I never use them because it's actually really hard to take the backing off of them. That's why they're so old and they're still in my stash. Anyhow, I got the backings off of them and it pops the picture up quite nicely. And now I'm just going to use this piece of Amy Tangerine Better Together paper for my final mat. So this one is triple matted. And lay out my dots, and there's my title, which I'm still not convinced about. And I would love to use this die cut piece. It says, "I know nothing with any certainty, but the sight of the stars makes me dream." And it's a Vincent van Gogh quote. And I'd love to use it because it kind of sounds like something that Jacob Hogarth would write about. But it's not going to make it onto the layout. I'm going to leave it there for a little while and think about how I might be able to incorporate it. I'm just looking at some of the other embellishments that come with the kit and trying to think about how I might want to use some of these things on the layout. Again, I think I mentioned this in the introduction, but my challenge here is that I actually don't want to put too much on this layout because the paper itself is most of the design. And I really don't want to take away from the photo. It's got this quiet strength to it that I just love. And I don't want to pile on a whole bunch of embellishments on this one. So, but I do really like this quote here. It says, "You're only limited by your imagination." And that is, I tried to pick phrases and quotes for these layouts that would be kind of consistent with some of the messages that are in the music that they make. And so that's obviously not a quote from one of their songs or anything, but it sounds like it could be. Because they sing a lot of songs about, going for your dreams and being true to yourself and that sort of thing. So I'm using some Tombow Mono Multi liquid adhesive to glue these onto the wood veneer. And I just flipped the wood veneers over so that the patterns, which were not really relevant to this layout, so that the patterns were not showing, and that way they wouldn't be a distraction. And I'm just using some pop dots to hold up the flags from that word imagination. And I think that looks pretty good there. I used a whole lot of liquid adhesive there, way more than I should have, and the paper kind of warped underneath of it for a while. It unwarped once it dried, but it caused me a little bit of grief in terms of, well, I guess I was just worried that it wouldn't settle down, but it did settle down. It's not warped right now, so it's fine. And I used a lot on that one too, and I really shouldn't have. That Tombow Mono Multi adhesive is really, really strong, and you don't need to use a ton of it. I forget that. I know I say that every time, but somehow I don't always practice what I preach. So I thought about spelling out the word trip with the same letter stickers that I used to spell out Headley on the layout that is facing. And I did so, but I can't really find a good place to put it. I don't want to put it there because I have this thing about photos that Scott takes. I don't like to cover them at all. It's different if it's just a snapshot from my iPhone or something. That's fine. I don't mind covering, like having some of my words go onto the photo, but I just find that when I think of a photo as being artistic or kind of part of the design, then I don't really want to cover it. It's just a little quirk that I have. I think that the word trip would have looked fine layered onto the photo, and I think that would be a great look, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So here I am. You saw me pressing on that wood veneer down there with the word imagination on it. That's because I put too much glue and it's really warping and looking gross. But anyhow, I mean, it doesn't look gross, but it's really warped at this point, but it's not now. It just was as I was scrapbooking because it wasn't dry yet. I should have had faith in the Tombow because it does dry and it's not warped once it's dry. So I stuck down the photo and now I'm going to try again with the word trip. Trip is because that's the name of the song he was singing when he showed up in the audience for the encore. And now because this word is smaller and it's plain, it basically just looks like a little tiny white rectangle with the word trip on it. I'm more open to the idea of layering it on the photo. And I really think that is the place that it makes the most impact. So I'm going to put it right down there in the audience, and I'm going to put it on the bottom left-hand side because it provides some balance with the spotlight that's coming from the top right-hand side. And it's kind of like the spotlight, there's one continuous line that starts at the spotlight, it spreads out, and then it goes into the fans, and then it ends with the word trip. And I'm not sure where I went here. I must have forgotten to press pause. But that's okay because I see that I'm coming back. Here I am. So I just tore that off of the wax paper that I had used just to test it out to see if it worked. And I left a tiny little bit of black all the way around it so that it looks like it's contained within the picture, within the photo. And now I went to my sewing machine and I sewed with black thread all the way around each of the circles. And I was hoping for a nice, neat circle, and it would just be texture because it's black thread on black cardstock, and I thought it would look absolutely gorgeous, and I was really wrong because I did not do a very good job because this layout is so bulky. I did not do a very good job at all of sewing, and the circles were really wonky instead of being nice and smooth, which would have looked great, I think. So anyhow, I was really unpleased with it, or displeased, whatever the grammatically correct phrase is here. So I went back to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew double sewn circles around each one of them, and that will emphasize the wonkiness and make it look like I made it wonky on purpose. So, and that is a tip that I have for you for whatever you're doing. If it turns out wonky and if it's to the point that you really can't start over again, there's no way I was going to start over again this far into the layout. Just go with it. So I do this with my outlining. Sometimes if I'm outlining and my line comes out more wobbly than it's supposed to, what I do is I just double outline it, and then it looks kind of wobbly anyways. So I didn't record the first time that I was at my sewing machine, but I thought I would record this time just so that you can see how you have to bend your paper up around the arm of your sewing machine in order for it to stitch in the places that you need it to stitch, but that's okay. And I think I'm done. Yes. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove all of this, of the, strands of thread that are hanging off of it. And look at that. That looks kind of cool, actually. That makes a nice background. I think I might use that as an idea sometime. So I'm positioning this so that it looks like the spotlight in the photo is coming from the center of the circle in the background. And now all I have to do is embellish a little tiny bit more. And not very much at all. So I wanted to use the enamel dots that came in the kit, but I needed black. And the kit came with light blue, dark blue, green, and white. So I went into my stash and got some enamel dots. I think these came with the Halloween themed Scraptastic kit this year. And I took some black and I also took some gray and I put little pairs of them, a big and a little, in 3 different places. And then I put one right on the flare badge that says the best. And now this is actually how it looks with a little 6x12 insert page, which I wasn't planning to do until after I had finished this one. And I'll talk a little bit on my next process video about how I made, well, I'll make a process video that shows how I made that little 6x12 insert, but I'll also talk a little bit about why I decided to do that. So I forgot to take any pictures of just this layout by itself, but here are some of the close-ups. So because this is an all-male band, I'm using this layout as part of the Oh Boy Challenge, which is the April challenge on my YouTube group. So check out the group if you want to join us on Facebook, or even if you just want to play along on YouTube, that's fine too. Check out the video, I'll link it at the end, and have a really great scrappy week.